The Hateful Eight is the newest movie brought to us by Quentin Tarantino, and conveniently, the 8th movie he has written and directed in his career. Now, I know I say in the beginning of a lot of my videos that, oh, this is a movie that I was really looking forward to when it was announced and yada yada yada. But The Hateful Eight was near the very top of the list of movies coming out in 2015 that I was really excited for. And that is because Quentin Tarantino is my all-time favorite director. I think he embodies exactly what you could look for in a guy who can truly make a movie a cinematic experience. He knows how to create such memorable characters, and he knows how to cast the right people who can portray these characters perfectly. This guy, I think, is also one of the best writers in the history of film. I mean, you watch his movies and he has moments that are so intense they can put you right on the edge of your seat, and these scenes may be something as simple as two guys having a conversation about a cheeseburger. It's just traits like this that have people holding him at such a high standard when it comes to movies. Especially when he has delivered to us some amazing movies such as Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, Inglourious Basterds, and Django Unchained. And now I'm here to tell you all that The Hateful Eight is another piece of genius to add to Quentin Tarantino's resume. This movie was fantastic. It was so great and so unique, and I am so glad I went out of my way to see it before the year was over. Say what you will about Quentin Tarantino. You can say, he's a weird guy. You can say he pushes the envelope a lot in what should be in a movie. You can say he's way more into violence than any normal person should be. But you cannot look me in the face and say that he is not one of the best filmmakers in the business, because that is exactly what he is. Now, before I get into my spoiler, as I just mentioned earlier, I had to go out of my way to see this movie. Because as of right now, The Hateful Eight has a limited release in only a few select theaters in each state. So I imagine a lot of you haven't seen it just yet. I know it's going to get a wider release soon, but I strongly urge you guys to track this movie down and go see it as soon as you can for reasons that I will explain more of throughout this video. Alright, I've said what I need to say. Let's talk about The Hateful Eight. So one of the things that immediately made this movie stand out is how it's presented to us. Quentin Tarantino filmed this movie in 70mm format, which was the format used to film movies way back in the day. That's why this movie is in a limited release right now, because only some theaters could release this movie that way. And this is already what makes Quentin Tarantino such a great director. Because nowadays, so many directors are just jumping all over the chance to film their movie in 3D or in IMAX or even fucking 4D. Tarantino is all like, no, you know what? I'm gonna give the people a real cinematic experience by filming and releasing my movie in the format that was used over 50 years ago. And it's part of what makes this movie so awesome. The first thing we get in this movie is an overture, which is just a still frame shot that's clearly shown to be filmed in 70mm. You can clearly see the camera, bobbing and shaking with this amazing musical score playing in the background. Literally, nothing has happened yet in this movie and you're already sucked into it. That's awesome. So this movie is set in post-Civil War Wyoming. We see Samuel L. Jackson. He's a bounty hunter trying to transport 3 bodies to the town Red Rock. But the problem is there is a really dangerous blizzard coming his way and he needs to be able to get shelter. Luckily for him, he runs into fellow bounty hunter Kurt Russell. Now, Kurt Russell is a different kind of bounty hunter in the fact that he never kills the outlaws that he finds. He is known as the Hangman because when he catches these criminals, he makes sure that they are taken to the hangman of the town to hang. The criminal that he is bringing to the hangman this time is Jennifer Jason Leigh. She's wanted for murder and she is worth a lot of money. However, Samuel L. Jackson explains to Kurt Russell that, he's not after his bounty. He's perfectly satisfied with the guys that he's caught. And with that, Kurt Russell allows Samuel L. Jackson to come aboard his stagecoach. Now, we find out as these guys are riding along that Samuel L. Jackson is a Civil War veteran. He had fought as a member of the Union, and he even has a letter addressed to him written by Abraham Lincoln. Which obviously now has everyone seeing Samuel L. Jackson as kind of a big deal. And eventually they find another guy trying to look for a ride to get out of the blizzard. They find out it's the sheriff of Red Rock, played by Walton Goggins, so they allowed him to come aboard the stagecoach to assure that they get paid for their bounties. Now, he and Samuel Jackson, they're kind of at odds with each other over certain events that went down during the Civil War. Walton Goggins' father led a group of martyrs throughout South Carolina during the war, which resulted in the killing of a lot of black people. while Samuel L. Jackson was known for burning down a Confederate prisoner of war camp that was known for abusing a lot of black soldiers. It resulted in the deaths of Confederate and Union soldiers. So this obviously has these two guys, really at each other's throats over who was the lesser of the two evils during the war. So finally, these 4 people arrive at a cabin where 4 other people are already there. You have Tim Roth, who is conveniently the hangman of Red Rock. Michael Madsen, who's this quiet cowboy, just stays in the corner and keeps to himself kind of guy. Then you have Damien Bashir, who's just some Mexican apparently. And then finally we have Bruce Dern, who is a former Confederate general, so naturally he's not too fond of black people. Now with the blizzard only getting worse, these 8 people now know that they're all stuck together until it's safe for them all to leave. And Kurt Russell, he's already starting to get suspicious. He's starting to think that maybe one or even a couple of the guys in the cabin are secretly working with Jennifer Jason Leigh. To try to ease the situation, Kurt Russell simply asks everyone to hand him their guns for the remainder of the blizzard just in case someone really is up to something. And this is where this movie only started to get better, because now this movie is a mystery. It has us as an audience now trying to do what Kurt Russell and Samuel L. Jackson are trying to do, and that is narrow down which one of these men is a liar and planning on betraying them. It just makes the movie a lot more fun, and it sucks you into it way more because now you want to make sure you don't miss anything in deciding who could be the culprit in this movie. Now later on that night, while everyone is eating, more tension now builds, this time between Bruce Dern and Samuel L. Jackson. We learn that during the Battle of Baton Rouge, Bruce Dern had put the lives of his white soldiers well ahead of his black soldiers, which of course resulted him in leaving a lot of his black soldiers to die after he had them execute a lot of Union black soldiers. This event of course just infuriated Samuel L. Jackson, but he then demonstrates how you get completely even with a guy like Bruce Dern. In fact, I don't even think it can be considered getting even. It's Samuel L. Jackson officially winning. He tells Bruce Dern that sometime after the Civil War, he ended up running into Bruce Dern's son. His son was freezing, he asked Samuel L. Jackson for help, and he even brought up the fact that he is Bruce Dern's son, which would prove to be a very, very bad decision on this guy's part. After learning this, Samuel L. Jackson forces this guy to walk butt naked through the snow and freezing weather for hours. And after all that walking in the freezing cold, this guy looks at Samuel L. Jackson and asks for a blanket. Nothing more, nothing less, just a blanket. And Samuel L. Jackson, as he's telling the story, reveals that he promised Bruce Dern's son a blanket if Bruce Dern's son sucked his dick. And he did. And Samuel L. Jackson is just laughing his ass off to this, and Bruce Dern is just continuing to look more horrified and horrified as this story is going on. And finally, Samuel L. Jackson reveals that he never gave the guy a blanket. He just killed him. Now Bruce Dern officially loses it. He grabs a gun, he tries to shoot Samuel L. Jackson, but Samuel L. Jackson shoots him first. And just like that, we're officially able to cross one suspect off the list. Now immediately after this scene happened, the movie stopped for a little while and we got an intermission. And I guess this was because when you film in 70mm, you have to switch the reels at the halfway point or something. I don't know. But I was actually really happy that this happened at this point, because I had to pee so bad throughout this movie, and you're not going to get up to use the bathroom during a Quentin Tarantino movie. Now that we got an intermission, we actually got a chance to get up, stretch our legs, and pee. When was the last time you got to do that during a movie? Exactly, never. So now the second half of the movie is officially underway, and now we learn some new information here. We find out that while Samuel L. Jackson was telling Bruce Dern the story, and everyone was of course listening in on it, somebody got up and poisoned the coffee that the characters are brewing. And the only person who saw who did it was Jennifer Jason Leigh. Kurt Russell ends up drinking some of the coffee, which just caused him to start throwing up blood before collapsing to the floor, dead. Samuel L. Jackson is therefore now able to narrow down the culprit to either Damien Bashir, Tim Roth, or Michael Madsen, because Walton Goggins had nearly drank the poisoned coffee himself, so he obviously can't be the culprit. And Samuel L. Jackson is able to make some further evaluations, and he is eventually able to come to the conclusion that Damien Bashir is working with Jennifer Jason Leigh, because the person who owned this cabin hated Mexicans, so there's no way in hell they would leave a Mexican in charge of it. So with that, Samuel L. Jackson just blows this dude's head off in the traditional bloody and gory violence that Tarantino is known for. However, he also deduces that even though Damien Bashir is working with Jennifer Jason Leigh, he is not the one who poisoned the coffee. One of these other two is. Michael Madsen eventually confesses that he was the one who did it, but before Samuel L. Jackson can execute him, someone from under the floorboards just shoots Samuel L. Jackson in the nuts. While more shooting occurs that results in Tim Roth and Walton Goggins both being severely wounded. Which leaves you sitting there like, what the fuck just happened? Now, in the next scene, we get a flashback that shows how all of this came to be. It turns out that Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, and Damien Bashir had all come to this cabin earlier, led by a fourth guy who turns out to be Channing Tatum. The four of them had killed everyone who was in the cabin previously, with the exception of Bruce Dern. Channing Tatum reveals that he is the brother of Jennifer Jason Leigh, and he's led these guys down to this cabin to free her from Kurt Russell. They know a blizzard is coming and that Kurt Russell will have to come to this cabin for shelter, and right then they will kill Kurt Russell and be able to free Jennifer Jason Leigh. They opted to keep Bruce Dern alive because when Kurt Russell arrives, it will seem less sketchy when he sees an old man there among these people. Sounds like a pretty solid plan when you think about it. But that plan didn't count on Samuel L. Jackson and Walton Goggins coming into the mix. And now, back in the present moment, you know, when Samuel L. Jackson got shot in the dick, he and Walton Goggins are able to get Channing Tatum to give up and show himself from under the floorboards, where naturally Samuel L. Jackson just shoots him in the head. Sorry, ladies. But now, Jennifer Jason Leigh tries to make a deal with Walton Goggins here. She tells them that the rest of Channing Tatum's gang is waiting for them in Red Rock and plans to kill anyone who interfered with this plan and then sacking the town. However, if Walton Goggins kills Samuel L. Jackson, Jennifer Jason Leigh tells him that the gang will not harm him, and this will also allow him to take Tim Roth and the recently killed Michael Madsen's bodies to Red Rock as his own bounty. However, Walton Goggins decides to assume that she's lying, but before he can take any action against her, he passes out from his wounds. Jennifer Jason Leigh is then able to free herself from Kurt Russell's dead body, and she tries to get a gun to kill Samuel L. Jackson, but in the nick of time, Walton Goggins wakes back up to stop her. And with that, he and Samuel L. Jackson decide to kill her by hanging her to honor Kurt Russell. So all in all, The Hateful Eight was great. It just had everything you could want in a Quentin Tarantino movie. The writing was genius. I can guarantee you people will be quoting this movie just as people have done with every Tarantino movie. The story is awesome. The mystery in this movie was great. It made it a lot of fun trying to figure out who done it. Is the movie violent as hell? Oh yeah. But Quentin Tarantino just has a way of making said violence really add to the enjoyment of a movie. The characters are all awesome and portrayed by each actor perfectly. Samuel L. Jackson is phenomenal in this movie. It is so great to see him back as the forefront of a Tarantino movie. He really hasn't been that since Pulp Fiction, and I will go so far to say this is the best he has been since Pulp Fiction. Everyone else was great. I mean, Kurt Russell, Walton Goggins, Jennifer Jason Leigh, she was incredible. I mean, this movie takes place in just one setting for basically the entire movie, and there is no sign of boredom throughout it. That's awesome. The music in this movie is also awesome. It's the kind that you'll want to listen to whenever you get the chance because it's that good. And what really added to this movie is the fact that it was filmed the way it was. It was such a unique experience seeing how movies were filmed back in the day with an overture and an intermission. It's just factors like these that make Quentin Tarantino the amazing writer and director that he is, and what made The Hateful Eight such an amazing movie. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.